Everyone, welcome back to the news in details. Now, President Paul Kagame has called on G20 members to play their part in the equitable distribution of the COVID-19 vaccines. Otherwise, the goal of vaccinating 70% of the globe's population by the end of next year will not be possible. Now, the Rwandan head of state made the appeal on Saturday as leaders of the world's major economies gathered in Rome for this year's G20 summit.
President Paul Kagame arrived in Italy on Friday ahead of the start of the summit, and on Saturday met and held discussions with that country's prime minister. During the G20 summit itself, the African leader pointed out to participants that there can be no economic recovery from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic as long as inequality continues to exist when it comes to the distribution of vaccines. To this end, Africa has been working to be able to produce the vaccines her people need. Other matters being discussed at this year's summit include energy and the issue of climate change. On the sidelines of the event, President Paul Kagame met with different dignitaries that include the President of the European Council, the Director General of the World Trade Organization, and Queen Maxima of the Netherlands.
On Thursday, local elections for different authorities were held at the cell level across the country. Now, the newly elected local officials have been urged to listen to the communities they serve and work hard to improve their social wealth.
The elections saw local officials at the cell level vie for positions to represent the National Council of Persons with Disabilities at that level, the National Youth and Women's Councils, the 30% leadership positions reserved for women on the cell advisory councils, and more. All votes were cast via ballots except for those electing persons with disabilities, and in that case people would line up behind their desired candidate. The newly elected local officials have been urged to listen to the communities they serve and work hard to improve their social welfare, and they in turn vow to tackle urgent matters that require their attention. The youth have many problems, the biggest being unemployment that results in their engaging in bad activities, which is why I'm going to work to have that addressed. There is the matter of health care for people with disabilities that can be complicated because of things like prosthetics. There is also the issue of personal economic development that such people struggle with. So we must support them by helping them to come up with income-generating activities. Officials from the National Electoral Commission commended the way the elections were held. There was good turnout and the voting started early. The only exception was the number of people with disabilities that came out to vote. But there are not that many at the cell level anyway. Everything was fine and the schedule was respected. Let us therefore thank all the people who participated, the councils that cast their votes, the youth, women and people living with disabilities. On Saturday next week, the elections of people holding similar positions will be held at the sector level.
The UK's United Nations Climate Change Conference of Parties set to kick off this week in the UK. The city of Kigali has announced that more than 200,000 trees will be planted in the city this year to further the city's development and conservation efforts. Innocent Mugabe reports.
The green nature in central Kigali is one of the things that make the capital of Rwanda eye-catching for its visitors. Kigali residents show a clear understanding of the importance of trees in human life and the challenges they face in their absence. Trees are a good source of fresh air, and these with flowers are so beneficial to insects like bees. Without trees, we might face a lot of problems, like lack of rain due to global warming. On the other hand, there are parts of the city with fewer trees, and the mayor of Kigali City says that plans are underway to ensure that the development of the city also considers protecting the environment. Kigali City has a surface area of about 76,000 hectares. 32% of this area was reserved for environmental protection activities. The trees we planted sit on an area of about 3,600 hectares. We plan to plant 100,000 fruit trees this year, not forgetting other 100,000 again to replace the old ones around Kigali City, like in Rebero, Mount Kigali and Jari.
ku byanya cyangwa ibisigara bya leta bigiye biri ahantu hatandukanye mu mujyi.
Combating climate change is one of the goals of the United Nations Climate Change Conference of the Parties, COP26, that is set to kick off this week in the UK. Dr. Charles Karangwa, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN country representative, says that this meeting can bring about positive changes in environmental protection.
turizera yuko noneho hari ibikorwa bifatika bigiye kuva muri iriya nama.
We hope that there will be positive outcomes out of that meeting, be it in providing the $100 billion to developing countries or reducing emissions in all spheres of life.
twizera ko ari umwaka udasanzwe ku bijyanye n'imihindagurikire y'ikirere.
As by 2050 countries pledge to achieve a sustainable economy based on environmental protection, Rwanda has now achieved the goal of afforestation on 30% of the country's surface area and aims to reduce emissions by 38% by 2030. Innocent Mogabo, RTV News.
Thank you, Innocent, for that report. Now, efforts have continued to ensure that Rwanda's youth play their part in the country's unity and reconciliation process. And on Saturday, the Catholic Church's Justice and Peace Commission organized discussions on the matter at Fawe Girls' School here in Kigali.
During the event, students were able to relay messages through discussions, poems, songs, and art, showing that they understand the horrors of the genocide that was perpetrated against the Tutsi in Rwanda back in 1994 and the legacy it left behind.
I think this unity we are talking about between the youth is this unity that helps us to bring peace, harmony between us, and this reconciliation, we can say it's like having problems with your friends and you're able to solve it and avoid the thing of conflicts between you and have peace. And I think peace, this is when there are no problems between you. I think we can promote it here.
Young people are being urged not to allow themselves to be misled.
So I think it's very important for us as the youth to take the first step in educating ourselves. I think it's important to understand that this country is ours, that our forefathers, our parents' generation has already done what it had to do to get us here. And it's important for us to actually sustain that kind of development and to sustain that kind of peace. And then the second thing, I think it's important to feel like this is actually our country. And one way to do that is to truly understand our history so that things don't just easily shake us.
The organizers of the event were encouraged by the mindsets they found the young girls to have.
ukwezi turimo dusoza tuzasoza ejo ni ukwezi kwahariwe kuzirikana ku bumwe n'ubwiyunge mu Rwanda.
This month was dedicated to unity and reconciliation here in Rwanda. And throughout the month, we organized discussions in communities on the issue. So today we decided to visit a school as well, to get feedback from the young people here on the country's initiative in this regard, and also give them advice so that as adults they will play their part to rebuild this country that was once almost completely destroyed by the genocide against the Tutsi and its effects. You heard for yourself how mature they are when it comes to unity and reconciliation. Indeed, that maturity is vital for the country's well-being moving forward.
Youth commitment in the reconciliation process will be permanent, necessary, and important because they are the one who is carrying the hope and the resilience for the future of this country.
Last year, unity and reconciliation was measured at 94.7% following research done by what used to be the National Unity and Reconciliation Commission.
Clearing agents in Rwanda are pleased with the progress of the country's transport sector has been making when it comes to the transfer of goods, both in terms of equipment and skills. The observation was made as Rwanda ranks in the top countries with internationally recognized experts in the transportation of goods.
Fred Seka has been in the transportation industry of goods and a clearing agent for more than 20 years. He says the COVID-19 pandemic revealed the extent to which the sector is progressing.
muri sector rero y'ubwikorezi ariya logistics.
We used not to have the capacity to transport goods from the port to the stocks, whereby 90% of the transportation services we used from other countries, for example at the Rusumo border. Very few commercial trucks belong to Rwanda, and the rest belong to other countries. But currently we have the capacity, whereby a person owns 400 trucks and others come together and buy 200 or 300 trucks, other 50 or so on, which all together add up to thousands of trucks. We've reached to a point whereby at the Dar es Salaam border, you'll find quite a number of trucks with Rwandan number plates, which is very impressive. At some point during this pandemic, as a lot of trading was taking place and some goods were being dropped at the border, I can only imagine if we didn't have the number of trucks that we have.
On the other hand, more exports are needed to make more profits for the investors, given that they also have more opportunities coming because of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement as it is currently being implemented.
Kugira ngo umuntu ukora ubucuruzi yunguke. Nkunda kuyivuga.
As I always say, for a business person to earn good income, they have to be able to handle well the logistic and transport cost. Currently, if you check the books of accountants, the direct cost or high cost goes to the logistics management, which is why there is much need of experts who understand how this impacts the country's economy.
Dukeneye abanyamwuga bumva uyu mwuga bakumva ibyo bakora, bakumva na impact bifite ku iterambere ry'igihugu.
Globally, the standards for delivery of quality services in this regard are set by the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport. Mugabo Patrick, the director of this organization in Rwanda, says although it has just been established in Rwanda, that there are more than 50 professionals and that the numbers will continue to grow. He says this will help in the development of the country's economy.
Burya nko kugura ikamyo ukaba uyifite nk'umuntu.
Owning a truck does not automatically make you a logistician. One needs the knowledge on how to give adequate services, which is why we are supporting these transport companies because, as they operate internationally, the country also earns more income because they pay taxes here and again, they provide employment opportunities. So we want them to expand and grow, but with enough expertise.
So ni muri urwo rwego tugira ngo twaguke ariko twaguke kinyamwuga.
Currently, traders in Rwanda are still complaining about the high transportation costs, and those costs are expected to fall by close to 70% once the country gets a railway track.